Hi, I'm Rebecca, I'm the Psych Coach, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to smash an interview for a job that you really, really want. I'm going to talk to you about 5 strategies that are taken from Cognitive Behavioural Therapy that will help you walk into the room, feel confident and behave confidently, and ultimately lead you to getting the job that you want. So, tip number 1. Remember that the person who's interviewing you is human. Pretty obvious, I know, but sometimes, particularly if it's a job you really want, you might make the person out, or the people who are interviewing you, to be totally amazing. You might make it out like they're the best people ever and you're nothing compared to them. And by putting them up on a pedestal, you'll create more anxiety for yourself. So whilst they are important people, because of course it's in their hands that they have the decision about whether you will get the job of your dreams or not, you have to remember that they're human too. So if you've got them up on a pedestal thinking, oh my goodness, they are the biggest, best thing ever and I'm nothing in comparison, bring them down a bit, okay? They're human. They've got histories, they would have made mistakes in their lives, they might have failed at interviews before, they won't have always been in a position of seniority, and ultimately they're going to have a compassionate side as well. So remember, they're human. That's the first rule. Tip number 2 is to buy yourself time. In pressurised situations, it is totally natural, of course, to feel a bit panicked. And when we feel panicked, we are often compelled to talk very fast, or some people might have the complete opposite happen to them and have mind blanks. And both of those can be quite horrid to feel. They can be a bit disconcerting to have to deal with. So buying yourself time is noticing when you're starting to feel a bit flustered, when you're starting to feel a bit too anxious, or when you're starting to feel too panicked to answer a question, and you buy yourself some time. A really good way of buying yourself some time is by having a sip of water. It takes a few seconds. You can focus on what you're doing, which is drinking the water, and in doing that, just calm down a little bit and refocus on what's being said. Another way you can buy yourself time is gently blow your nose, perhaps. Maybe you've got a tissue to hand, you just need to blow your nose. Maybe you just need to say, just let me gather my thoughts for a second. And doing that will buy you a few seconds, and often all you need is a few seconds just to calm yourself down and refocus. When you are buying yourself time, whether it's by wiping your nose or having a sip of water or simply saying, oh, I just need a bit of time to gather my thoughts, you just need to try and focus on what was the last thing that they said to me. If they're still talking, focus on what is it that they're telling me now. And that way you can get your brain refocused on what you need to be focusing on. Tip number 3 is, if you don't know the answer, tell them you need to have a think about it. What people are often compelled to do is to think, I don't know the answer to that question, but let me try and talk as I'm thinking and I'll try and come up with something. What often happens is you will talk yourself into a bit of a rut. You'll keep talking, and you may start not making sense. You may start not even answering the question that they've asked. So if it's a question you don't know the answer to, say, I need to think about that. Then you need to think about whether or not you know the answer to that. And if you don't know the answer or simply can't come up with a response to what they've asked, own it. Say, I'm really sorry, I don't know about that, but I'd be really keen to learn, or I'd be very keen to do some training to help me learn in that area, or I don't, but please can you tell me and I will absolutely retain that information, or I don't know that, but I would love to read up more about it or watch a video on it if you could suggest something. So you can say I don't know, and you can follow it up with a keenness to know more about it. Owning not knowing something is preferable to quite obviously talking about something, but really not knowing what you're talking about, digging yourself a hole, not answering the question, and then just ending up in a bit of a verbal mess. So own it if you don't know the answer to something. Tip number 4 is sit confidently. Shoulders down, head up. Walk into the room with confidence, sit down with confidence, don't sit and slump, don't cross your arms, just sit with an open posture, comfortably but with an open posture with your shoulders down, and relax. The way you sit has an influence on how you feel in a situation. If you go into a situation all shriveled up, wanting to take up as little space as possible and almost excusing yourself for being in the room, that's going to have a knock-on impact on how you feel. Going into the room like you own it a little more, shoulders back, carrying yourself with confidence means you will have more confidence. If you think about it, someone who's about to close a really important deal, someone who's about to deliver a big speech, someone who's about to, I don't know, sign for a job that they want, they're about to sign on the dotted line. People will go into those situations ready and confident to do it, even if they don't feel it. What you wouldn't expect in those situations is for someone to sort of walk up on stage and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm here. I'm just sort of, I'm just going to sort of do a little talk, and I'm not going to take up much space." They'll walk in and own the room even if they don't feel it. Someone who is being confident in the job interview will walk in there and deliver the message they've got, answer the questions they need to. They'll carry themselves confidently. Just watch on television, people who are about to do important things, they will typically carry themselves in a way that means, I know what I'm doing here. Even if you don't know what you're doing, that's fine. See the value in just carrying yourself in a confident way. Tip number 5 is do not over-prepare. It's really enticing to want to over-prepare. There's something you're really keen to, you're keen for, you want to do really well, so you want to spend weeks and weeks, hours and hours, however long it may be, over-preparing. The problem with over-preparing is you can come across like a bit of a robot because you might just be regurgitating facts that you've learnt. You may actually end up doing so much over-preparing that you overwhelm yourself, that you just feel so overwhelmed with information you can't actually retain any of it or recall any of it when you need to. And over-preparing also decreases your conviction that I can answer questions without needing a whole script behind me. I can have a good conversation without needing to know what I'm going to say next. Over-preparing undermines that because what you're telling yourself is I need to plan, I need to know it all because otherwise I'm not going to be able to deal with it. Of course, if you're going for an interview, it's perfectly sensible to research a bit about the company you're going to be working for, or research a little bit about the organisation's history, or research a little bit about the job role. It's all perfectly fine. But if you're over-preparing, you've written scripts, you've sort of treated it as if it's a really big exam, it's probably not healthy, and it's probably indicative of you being a little too anxious. So try and decrease the over-preparation. A few hours perhaps, maybe you need to spend a few hours brushing up on interview technique, but don't get caught up in a rabbit hole of research because ultimately it's going to play into your anxiety. Trust your ability to retain information, research a little bit, do a little bit of planning, but don't treat it like you need to cram before you walk in because it's unnecessary and it will undermine your natural capabilities. And my final tip number 6, is don't aim for perfection. If you have the belief before you go into an interview of I must answer everything perfectly, I mustn't have any kind of pause in my conversation, I must make sure every word I say is delivered really eloquently and I don't mess up anything and I don't have any mind blanks and I mustn't stutter, the pressure is going to be far too much. What you need to do is think, I really want to do well. I'm really keen to do well. I want them to like me. I want the job. But it's okay if I make a mistake or two because I'm human. And as I said at the start, they're human too. So it's perfectly natural if you have a few mistakes or a mind blank where you answer the question wrong. Don't go in there aiming for perfection. Go in there thinking, I want to do really well. And if I do have a bit of a deviation from my ideal, that's okay. I don't need to be perfect. They are not looking for absolute perfection in your behaviour, they're looking for the ideal candidate. And if you are less anxious and more confident, you are more likely to come across like the ideal candidate than someone who's going in there riddled with anxiety because they so want it to be an absolutely perfect performance. So to recap on the tips, remember that they're human. Buy yourself some time if you need time to think about a question. If you don't know the answer to a question, own up and say, I'm not sure about that, but I'm really keen to learn, or could you teach me more, or no, I don't know about that, but I would love to learn more. Remember to sit confidently, carry yourself confidently. Do not over prepare and spend far too long planning for it, because that's totally unnecessary. And don't aim for perfection. Aim for good enough, because that will keep your anxiety lower. If you've enjoyed my video today, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I will continue to give you tips from psychology to help you with your day-to-day life.